Water Management Zone Committees on their quarterly reports. So the order in which we'll take these is the Christchurch West Melton Zone Committee, the Banks Peninsula Zone Committee, and the Selwyn Waihora Zone Committee. And what I intend to do is to give 10 minutes to each zone committee, and that would include time for questions if you wanted to leave time for questions. We're reasonably time limited around a number of other things on the agenda today, so I do need to keep this quite tight, but certainly happy to use the 10 minutes for each zone committee as you wish in each case. So if I could now call Arapata Reuben from the Christchurch West Melton Zone Committee. Arapata, you're the chair of that committee. Welcome to the table. Thank you very much indeed for the quarterly report, and we look forward to hearing your commentary alongside that. Thank you very much.
Kia ora tātou. Mihi nui kia koutou katoa. Yeah, I think, I'm very conscious of 10 minutes, so I'll keep my part very brief. We always get a lot of really good questions afterwards. So, probably the big highlight for us has been the stormwater interceptor for downpipes and drains. It's basically a retrofit, so it's capturing what's continually coming down off those roofs and that. It's been kind of referred to as the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff at the moment. It will do the work, but we've got to continually do it, so it makes sense that we continue to remove those toxins from that equation so that we no longer have to have that ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. The zone committee itself, we're kind of almost in a reflective stage, where we've done a lot of the hard work over the last 6-7 years, and we're starting to now look at getting results back from a lot of those early zone implementations from 2012-13. We're also, with that downtime, we've got the opportunity to get out more with the community, and just especially around educating them around the groundwater systems, with the nitrates obviously being in the news for the last 6 months. So yeah, we've had 2 bus trips in conjunction with UC and a couple of other community groups. Both bus trips were full. It was a really informative day. Public really enjoyed it. They got a lot of good. We got a lot of good feedback from them. They walked away feeling very educated with a greater understanding of our groundwater system. And it kind of reminded me 3 months ago when I left here, we talked about, afterwards I talked with Olivia about doing a similar run with councillors themselves, just to get them up to speed and make them more aware of our groundwater system around Christchurch. So yeah, that's probably been our major thing for the last 3 months. Because we're in that reflective stage, we didn't have a council meeting last month, committee meeting last month, and just interestingly, Waimakariri and Ashburton are similar. They've done all that hard work. It's now sitting back reflecting and just watching for the results to come in and make adjustments where needed. So yeah, that's me for now, and happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. So are there any questions for Arapata? Dion.
Just on the nitrates, then there was a letter that was sent?
Yes, yeah. So as yet we haven't had a response back from the Ministry of Health. The letter was tabled, and I haven't caught up with Barbara. We haven't received that.
No, we haven't received the reply.
Yeah.
So what was the letter asking?
Asking them to investigate, or we got given a report late last year, early this year, around the nitrates, and the nitrate limits seem to be a lot worse than what we first were led to believe last year. So we've sent that report off to the Ministry of Health and asked them to study it and come back with comments.
Okay. And is there any, do you have any idea on how that happened? Like you were led to believe something and that's actually not true, or it may not be true. I mean, how's that kind of happened?
Oh, it's a fact of life. Different people are testing different ways,
right,
different models, using different methods. We don't always have the most up-to-date. Yeah, other countries are doing studies, much more advanced, they're investing much more money into it. So yeah, this one just popped up and we looked at it and we thought, hey, look, this sounds like we need to do further investigations, so we've sent it away to the ministry.
Okay.
Yeah, just to check the validity of it and how much it will affect us here.
And do you think do you need any further support around that sort of that request, or is it just sort of a wait and see?
Pretty much just to wait and see what the response is from ministry, and yeah, we'll take a lead from that.
Right, yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Pauline, and then Glenn.
Oh, look, just to add to that and to let Aotearoa know that as a council we've put through a remit to the local government conference asking the government to back some more research into what they consider or what we should consider as acceptable nitrate levels, because up till now I think the data's mostly been referring to the blue baby syndrome, but now we can see that there's a lot lower level can have we have a very high colorectal cancer rate here, and also the effects on the invertebrates, as you know, through the committee. So I'm just letting you know that we've done that too. So in a way we are supporting what the
and
done.
so what Pauline said is exactly what I was saying. We were measuring against blue baby syndrome, whereas this other one was on colorectal. So when everyone's not measuring the same thing. And I think we had that discussion 3 years ago, high-level discussion with City Council and ECAN, because we were getting reports from both, and they kind of contradicted one another. They were measuring this one was measuring this one, something different. So we pulled them all together and asked them to measure the same way. Because it was just making our life so much difficult at the zone committee. I believe so.
Great, thank you, Glenn.
Thank you. And on that, our next report is part of that is about that section such as page 98 over nitrates. So it'd be great to have that connection.
We may have to reassess our decision with the Waimakariri Water Zone Committee one.
Vicky.
Yes. Judge, depending on what we get back from Ministry of Health and where that leads to from there, but just on face value, I'm not a scientist by any stretch of the imagination, but it would appear that we may have gone a little too early with that decision. But then that's all we had the information based on. So So as new information comes, you question your previous judgments and you make changes where necessary.
Nitrate incursion is actually increased in the new copy from ECAN?
Sorry, what was it?
Are you aware that the 3.8 level that the council objected to very strongly in the incursion of nitrates under the Waimak is actually increased in their new plan to 4.1 and 5.6?
The current levels have increased.
That what they're allowing?
The recommendations, yeah.
Are you aware that it's increased?
I did hear a rumour, I haven't officially been told,
Right.
Yeah.
What's your view on the whole, what's the name of the system? Overseer system?
Look, my opinion's no different than most others. It's a tool. It measures some things, but it doesn't measure all. It has its limitations. And again, it comes back to funding. The government's put in $5 or $6 million into this tool, yet they don't own it. If they owned it, then they could make those changes immediately and measure all those other factors that are not being able to be inputted in. Ngaitahu dairy farms are limited in what they can put into it, so you're limited in what you get out of it, the information you get out of it.
So who does own it?
MBI, there's a consortium of them in there, 3 or 4.
Including Ravensdown and Balance.
There's some industry in there as well,
All right,
But
thank you.
you only get out of it what you put in. If you can't put all your inputs into it, you're not going to get a true measure.
All right, thank you. Any further questions for Arapata?
Can I just follow up on the Waimak one? Do you guys get a chance to, does your organisation get a chance to actually submit to ECAN in this current round of submissions? Or do you just become a member of the public as far as that's concerned?
As a zone committee, we cannot make submissions.
You can't? Okay.
We can only make recommendations. Because remember, we're a joint committee of both City Council and Environment Canterbury.
And do you get to make comments on the Waimak?
Yeah, we can make recommendations.
You can make recommendations, and you will be reviewing it?
When that review period comes up again,
Very soon.
from my understanding, submissions are closed on it.
So the public submission's open.
Yeah, but unless you've already commented, that's very hard to get in after the drafts have been done. My experience, gosh, already over me 10 minutes, my experience has told us that if you're not submitting at the very get-go, before that draft period. Once that draft goes out for public submissions, very minimal changes are ever made. Yeah.
No, it's not.
All right. Look, thank you very much indeed. And I mean, I'm sure, opportunities for influence are something that you'll be interested in as a committee, and certainly from the questions you've heard this morning, it's clear that we're interested in as a council. But that's been a good discussion. Thank you very much indeed for the report and for coming along and speaking to it today, and for answers to questions. Thanks very much indeed, and good to see you. Thank you very much. Okay, so second zone committee up is the Banks Peninsula Zone Committee, and Deputy Chair Gina Weibel. Good to see you, second time this week. Welcome to the table. And you've got 10 minutes to speak to your committee's report.
Thank you, Andrew. Good morning. It doesn't feel like very long since I've last spoke to you in March. Over the last 2 months, the committee has been running well under new chair Benita Wakefield, and she's just delegated today's report to me. Something new that we have been doing at our meetings is we've implemented a roundtable discussion at the beginning of each meeting, just as a way of getting everyone involved and to provide a bit more of an open, relaxed atmosphere so that members feel a bit more comfortable speaking and contributing, especially as we've had 4 new members this year. You'll see from the photos in your agendas that we had a very good field trip in Little River prior to our April meeting, which was attended by some members of the public as well. During the field trip, we caught up with the Okuti community to get an update on the Okuti River project. That project seeks to restore a section of the Okuti River that runs past the community hall. That project also includes an education component as well as environmental monitoring and investigating options for legal protection. It's a community-led project, largely driven by Alison Evans and Marcus Pentner, who have both volunteered a lot of their time to bring it to fruition. It has received help from City Council reserve staff, who have fenced off land owned by Council so that the leaseholders' cattle no longer have access to the river. It's also received support from Wairewa Runanga, Enviro Schools, Lincoln and Canterbury Universities, DOC, as well as immediate steps funding through the Zone Committee and Environment Canterbury. This is one of 7 projects that received funding from the Zone Committee this year, which was approved this week. So it joins 39 projects that have been funded since the committee was established in 2011. So that comes to over $800,000 worth of immediate steps funding. And the work done sort of totals well over $1 million when you take into account that applicants are required to contribute at least a third of the total project cost. As part of the field trip, we also saw the willow removal that's happening on the Okana River this year, and the burn piles that are being created to save on cartage and dumping costs. We visited a site that had work done on it several years ago with all the willows removed and the riverbanks rebatted and reshaped and planted. It's definitely quite a transformation to see the difference. It's the 4th year that that program has been running, and the work is possible because of the creation of a special rating district which covers the whole Little River catchment. So the community supported that rating district after suffering 3 100-year floods in 2014 in the space of 2 months. And I just wanted to highlight that because it shows what can be done when the community gets together and agree to fund work. We seem to get a number of queries from people who are unsure of who is responsible for what and find it difficult to make any progress or find a way forward when that work is the responsibility of private landowners. And we heard a similar story at the Zone Committee meeting this week where we heard from Pam Richardson, who gave us an overview of the history of possum control on the peninsula and how that has been and continues to be funded from a targeted rate. Even though possum numbers are now well below levels required for TB control, landowners have agreed to continue to fund that work to keep the numbers low below that threshold, but also for biodiversity reasons. And I'm not sure how many people understand how the process for funding works in terms of members of the public. But that work that's been done in Little River is a great example of what a community can achieve when they work together. especially when the work that's required is outside of what most individual landowners can afford, and yet it does affect everyone when flooding is affecting the main road and the community centre. They'll also have some pretty good bonfires, I think, because apparently the money goes twice as far if they don't take away the vegetation that's been removed. This isn't in the quarterly report, but I thought I'd mention it anyway. The Zone Committee has received some very frank feedback from landowners who were asked why they would be hesitant to apply for council funding. This is in relation to ECAN's Immediate Steps Fund, but it also applies to some of your funds, particularly the Biodiversity Fund, which is applied to sites of ecological significance. So essentially landowners have reservations in inviting council staff onto their properties. Their main concern is that while staff are on the property that they might notice any unintentional or minor breaches of rules, and that they might find themselves in hot water over that. And yeah, in terms of access, they're just also worried that if they allow something to go ahead on their property, that they will end up having staff wanting to come onto their properties for a number of years afterwards, as well as sort of future liabilities in terms of being restricted on what they can do in parts of their properties and being responsible for any maintenance. So to address some of those concerns, we've asked that ECAN to put together a bit of a Q&A on their website, just to outline the process a bit more, and what landowners can expect in terms of site visits and that sort of thing, as well as some information on the types of agreements that are signed and negotiated with landowners. And it should also provide a bit of an overview of the approach ECAN take to compliance. So their goal is basically to develop productive relationships and collaboration rather than an antagonistic approach, and to use education over enforcement where possible. So it's really only the serious breaches that are prosecuted, and most breaches are just dealt with by asking landowners to fix the issue. And yeah, I'm sure during that type of site visit a lot of minor transgressions wouldn't be picked up at all. So one of the reasons I was just keen to address this is while Banks Peninsula has had more applicants than what our funds can cover for immediate steps projects over the last 2 years, they are often from landowners where vegetation cover already exists in the waterways. So it's things like covenanting projects where they're just getting more protection and fencing those. But one of the aims of the committee is to have whole catchments protected from the source to the sea. And I think it's not going to be too long before we're going to have situations where we will want to more proactively approach landowners where their property might be a gap in a waterway that's otherwise well protected. So that's all I really have today, if there's any questions.
That's great. So that leaves about 2.5 minutes for questions. Phil.
Thank you for your report. That's really helpful. And I just wondered, given the landowners' kind of views around the two councils, the formal part of council, I just wondered if the Zone Committee might be able to play a role there in terms of establishing, I guess, some dialogue and ongoing relationship with those landowners.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely see that as part of our role. I mean, we bridge that gap between the community and councils, especially the community reps.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions for Gina? Pauline.
Just following on from that one, Phil, so when you're saying that the landowners are a little bit resistant to inviting council staff when they've made a funding application, or if they're intending to, are they also resistant to Zone Committee staff or Zone Committee members coming out?
I'd say probably less so, especially as a lot of that feedback has come through a Zone Committee member. So they were quite happy to very openly talk to the community rep who is a farmer in the area, so he knows a lot of the people.
Do they also have the same attitude to Environment Canterbury staff?
Yes, so what the
Yeah.
feedback was
It just-
largely in relation to Environment Canterbury.
Okay, so it's about
yeah.
regulatory compliance and stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
so
just trying to think how we can get through that, but
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not all landowners,
No,
it's just
no.
a proportion of...
Yeah,
of-
and it
of-
may not be justified fear either. So it's just a perception largely,
Yeah,
and I can understand that. But we'll have a think about how we can get through that.
yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much. Gina, thanks very much indeed for the report and for speaking to it and for answering questions. That's great. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
So coming to the last of our Zone Committee presentations today, I'd invite the co-chairs of the Selwyn Waihora Zone Committee, Megan Hands and Leswan Halla, to the table. Thank you very much for joining us. The next 10 minutes are yours.
Morning, everyone. I'm Megan, for those who I've not met. It's great to be here, so thank you for having us today. And Les, I'm sure you all know.
Kia ora, I'm Les Winhella. I'm a representative from Tāmatu.
So Les and I have taken on to co-chair, so we're the first co-chairs of a zone committee for Environment Canterbury, so it's pretty exciting. You will have received the report here, and so I'll just flesh out a few bits and pieces and then we can have some questions. Won't take up too much of your time. So within this report, you'll see we've had a few meetings where we've had a lot of industry participation. Early in the year, we met with members from industry, Central Plains Water, Fonterra, Sinlay, the likes, who are all out working within the community with our farming community to implement the rules and regulations that we have in place through Plan Change 1. Tracking how that's going is really important for our zone committee, especially being the first cab off the rank, if you like, in terms of zone committee plan changes, and also we're a lot further down the track in terms of compliance with that, so we've been able to track that progress, and by all accounts things are progressing very well. There's a few things that we want to keep checks and balances on, but it seems things are ticking along well, and we are seeing some genuine progress out there on farm. We also visited Wairua Marae as a zone committee. We went and stayed the night there, which was lovely. Very well hosted, as I'm told is always the case, and learned a bit more about making a kai and about some of the issues around the lake. Further to that, and Les may be able to comment a little bit more detail around the Selwyn Waikirikiri working group. We've had a working group of community members working around Selwyn Waikirikiri River, around creating a roadmap to what that might look like as a plan for the Selwyn River to get it to where the community would like it to be. So that group has runanga farmers, community members, government organisations, community groups, lots of different groups who are there working for a plan for the Selwyn River, which is obviously often a hot topic in the media and a playground for those of your constituents here in the city. We've also done a few other bits and pieces around planting days and who knows what else. There seems to be something every week, if not every other day, where we are out in the community working with people to see that progress and see what's going on. Moving forward, we've got in June that Selwyn Waikirikiri Working Group are going to come back and present to us their roadmap, and we'll be able to make some comments on that and see where to from here. They're also very keen, as well as a number of other community members, to see how we are tracking progress against our zipidinum and whether we are hitting the targets that were set for us. So that's a pretty fundamental piece of work for us moving forward, as well as taking our meetings out to the community. So our meetings have been in Lincoln for the last little while. We're not getting as much public participation as we would like as a committee, so what we are asking is that we have asked and we are going to be moving around the community and having meetings throughout the district in the future. So we'll see how that goes, and hopefully it's successful to be able to engage with different pockets of the community where we haven't been able to get them down to Lincoln to come and speak with us. So I guess we can leave it there. If there's any further questions, or Les can add any more comments about the working group.
Yeah, as we all know, the Waikirikiri Selwyn, it's quite a polluted waterways, and with having the big braid in the middle of it, we don't get the flow as most other waterways. And from the Chamberlain's Ford right through to the lake, it seems though, even though it's more, moving water, it's a slow moving water, and with all the contaminants coming in from the Silver Stream, State Stream, it seems to pollute that water more. So we are, as a working group, are looking back to see where that pollution is coming from and educate the polluters and to try and make, especially the coast forward where a lot of summer events had been happening in the past and not been able to of late years because of the algae bloom, the contamination and so forth. So it's been a daunting task as a group to get to the stage where we can present to the zone committee. There are 3 zone committee members on that group as well, but our final meeting was last Tuesday, and where to from now are here for that working group. We sort of haven't worked out where. We realise that it can't no longer be a zone committee, it's a subcommittee, because environment and cannery have been paying up to now. And I think because it is a public committee or working group, that we have to step away from the zone to make it a public one and work on from there.
All right, thank you very much. Now that leaves a little bit of time for questions. Are there any questions for the representatives from Selwyn Waihora? No questions? Phil?
I was just going to ask you, look, I'm really pleased to hear that you've had discussions with some of the industries like the Fonterra and some like you mentioned, the Central Plains. So, I think you said there have been general progress with those discussions. So I just wondered though if in fact are any of those companies open to the concerns that have been expressed about the intensity of the...
I think it would be fair to say, without speaking on behalf of them, that they are certainly open. There's constant dialogue with both us as the zone committee and also with council staff around implementation of not only the statutory requirements that are in place in Selwyn, but also things outside of that. Synlait's got their own ISO accredited certification program now that they're trying to get as many of their suppliers to, which is called Lead with Pride, which they're trying to get most of their suppliers onto this year. There's also Central Plains as well, has a biodiversity fund that they're working within the district as well. There's lots of other things going on that we don't always hear, the good things out there about what some of these industry groups are doing. And my experience, I work in the field as well, my experience is that there is quite a significant amount of additional work going on top of the regulatory stuff.
Thanks, Vic.
Thank you. Pauline?
Is there any will for farmers out there to move away from the chemicals and into perhaps organic plant food or nutrients? And has the zone committee got any appetite to investigate that and encourage that?
It's not something we've really discussed at this point in time. There have been a number of other community or public events that have happened recently around some of those themes around regenerative agriculture, reduction in spray use, all of those sorts of things. And my understanding is they've been very well attended. So there certainly appears to be an appetite or interest in some of these things, but as a zone committee, it's not something we've discussed or pursued at this point.
Do you think you might perhaps look at pursuing that?
I guess we can see moving forward where we've got to. I didn't comment on where we're at with our next few meetings, but we've got a few different. We have themed our next few meetings, so there may be elements that will key in with that as we work through some of our future meetings around biodiversity and the like. So it's becoming so mainstream. Those things and those reductions, particularly around chemical use and that sort of thing, it's very hard to have any conversation in this space at all without considering all of those different options, and people are looking for different opportunities for solutions and different methods to manage better. Yep.
Well, I'd really like to see the committee pick that up, because if you're not putting the nitrates on, you're getting less out.
Great. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks for taking the time to come.
Just one other thing, we've got 1 minute there. Just to steal while I'm here, I've just had a thought, just looked over to Anne there. We do have trouble with Christchurch City Council and meetings clashing with our zone committee meetings. We have looked at the opportunity to reschedule, and I know there's been some discussions around that, but it would be really great if there was another way that Christchurch City Council could be more participatory with our zone committee. We'd really love that. So if there's anything else that we can do to help that happen and facilitate that happening, that would be really fantastic.
Yeah, it's a good comment, and I mean, I'm aware of the issue in as much as Anne and I have had conversations with it, and I appreciate the attempt to reschedule things at your end. It's something that we need to look at. obviously over the next few months, but certainly it's something we need to look at as we start to think about appointments to committees and to schedule diaries, particularly after the local body elections, so that we can get this right in the next term of council. If there's anything we can do to resolve it before that, I think that also would have huge value as well. It's important that the City Council has got good representation on these zone committees, and it's important that as well as these reports, we're well linked in so that we're aware of the committee's work and what's happening there. So thanks very much indeed for the comment.
That would be very appreciated. Cheers.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So we've got a resolution in front of us to receive the information in the Zone Committee's update reports, which I'm happy to move. Phil, you're happy to second. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you very much, and thanks once again to all of those from the Zone Committees who presented to us this morning. Thanks for coming in. Thank you.